welcome to everybody again, and we'll start now. And normally at this time, when we have a speaker, we introduce him and tell you all about him, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we're not going to do that today because John's going to tell us all about himself. So, but I thought what we ought to do, though, we ought to ask God to come into this environment, and we ought to give John a blessing. So let's all sing a blessing to John. Okay. May the blessing of the Lord be upon you. We bless you in the name of the Lord. May the blessing of the Lord be upon you. We bless you in the name of the Lord.
Amen. Wow, what a crowd. Really good to see all of you. I want to thank you for being here. I know most of you from either coffee in the morning after Mass or the different classes, mainly classes, I like to sign up for every class that's going on in the parish. It's a big help. I'd like to start with a little prayer first. I pray that the Holy Spirit open my mouth so my lips may proclaim the love of God. All right, this is a story about my life, all of it. From the very beginning, and I have to start there because it all ties in. It's all one long story. And I do the Alpha class in prison. The seventh week, the seventh chapter in Alpha, the topic is, how does God guide you? So that's what this is about. So I have to start way at the beginning. I was born in 1940. World War II started in 1939. Germany, or the Nazis, Hitler, invaded Austria, Hungary, Poland, and then moved up north to Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, the Baltic states. That was in 39. Then in 1940, Russia didn't want them coming. They figured they'd be going all the way up. They didn't know. So Russia started to come down and chase them out. So in 1941, in the spring, February 8th, was my sister's birthday. And we left in 1941, February. Some relatives came, picked us up in a wagon, drawn by horses, and they took us to the train depot. We got on that train and left, not knowing where we're going or what's going to happen. There were no phones, no TVs, nothing like that back then. We just left. And this first story was, I was too young, but my older siblings talked about it. That we were somewhere camped it was in the forest, woods, and there was a campfire going there, and I think it had to be in Poland, because my older brother Tony, he was like maybe 6 or 7 at the time, he got a hold of some bullets somewhere. There was always stuff laying around, all kinds of shells and mortars and everything, and he found some bullets and walked by and threw them in that fire. And of course, they got hot enough, they started to explode. And these people were chasing this kid, my brother. They were going to do him harm, And but my dad, he intervened. He spoke Polish real well. And he said, well, we're not foreigners, we're Polish. Like you are, Sabaliauskas, he says, And they kind of calmed down. And this next story I remember pretty well. I must have been 4 or 5 years old, and I was out walking somewhere, and for no reason, I don't know what it was, but I was just walking, I saw a garbage can there, and I started digging through this garbage can, looking for food, because we were always hungry, so I'm digging through there, couldn't find nothing, and I happened to see across the street a little farther down, there was this prison. I think it was a concentration camp. Buchenwald. That's what I heard later. My sister told me. And there were these people in there, probably Jews, I'm guessing, I don't know. But they had their arms sticking through this wire fence and motioning like this to me. Bring me something. Of course, I didn't have anything. I had nothing to give up. And that picture stuck in my mind all my life. Not every day or week or month, even years. But once in a while, it would flash through my mind, that picture. These people begging for food. Okay? I'm losing track. You gotta excuse me, I get very emotional. Okay? And I found out what that was. Tears are liquid love. So anytime when you feel good and you're so happy about things, you start crying. That's liquid love. So I got a good excuse. I made a lot of notes here, but I'm just speaking from the heart. The next story was really scary. I remember this one pretty well, but it might have been close towards the end of the war, where we were outside somewhere and the sirens go off. And when the sirens go off, you gotta start looking for cover. They're gonna start bombing. So all these people, there was a school building. And all these people were running for that building, and they went down the basement. And all start to go down the basement. People screaming, pushing, shoving. Oh, it was terrible. We all got in there, and it was dark. And especially the women, they start screaming so bad when you got thousands of people in there, hundreds, and everybody's screaming, crying, the kids start crying. It's like a nightmare, And a lot of them were trying to leave. They said, I don't want to die in here. They tried to get out, but people held them back. They thought you're safer in that basement, And the bombing continued all night. The next morning we went out, and right where in the street, in front of that building, was this great big hole, crater, where the bomb fell, Building was shaking. A couple of yards more, and I wouldn't be standing here today, I don't think. None of us. So that was one of those scary things. But of course, the whole war is scary, Not but shooting and bombing day after day. We lived there 4 years during the war, and it's even like you see today about Ukraine, It just brings back all those bad memories. What's happening to innocent people, So, well, life went on. We did a lot of moving. We lived in so many different towns, I can't name them all. I didn't remember most of them. And nothing was permanent. You just kept moving. living in refugee camps. We did a lot of that because the main reason, I think, was they had soup lines, for those people. At least you get at least one meal a day, But I think that was the worst thing for me. I was always hungry. A little kid, what do you want? You want to eat, So, finally the war was over in 1945. Life was a little better back then. No more shooting, bombings, nothing like that, but we still refugees wandering. Don't know where you're going, what you're going to do, where the next meal comes from. And it was me, my brother Ziggy, my sister Vera, were the three youngest at that time. And my dad would send us out to go begging for food. People see little kids hungry, you always get something, So we did a lot of begging. Food, mainly potatoes. Once in a while a loaf of bread, that was really a treat, But we get a lot of potatoes, and I think we invented the French fries. We bring the potatoes home, and my mom would peel them extra thick with a little potato on that peeling, and we would fry them on the pot-belly stove. Boy, that was good. A lot of times that was our meal. So, and I remember one other time, we got a hold of some carrots somewhere. Carrots, nothing else. My mom boiled them up. We had a pot full of carrots and water. And I was so hungry, I ate so much of them, I stuffed myself that I went out and I got sick. I had to throw it all up. Sick. Life was not good. Well, this next story is a little more, not as bad, I don't think, but I don't know where it was either. I was out wandering again, like always, looking for food. And there were a lot of people, and they were all going in this big building. So little kid Mosey, I followed right in with them. It was like a barn where they had these troughs mounted on the wall where they would throw feed in, hay for the horses or cows or whatever. So I climbed up in there, and I'm sitting there watching all the people that coming in. And pretty soon Santa Claus comes in with this great big bag he's dragging. Came in there, and he started calling out names, and kids would go up there, and he'd give them something, and kept going on and on. I'm sitting there saying, wow, why doesn't he call my name, I couldn't figure out why. He didn't call my name, never did. So when everybody left, I left too. I went back home, and Mom says, where you been? I told her over whatever, and I said, Santa Claus never called my name. She said, don't worry, when you get to America, you'll have everything you want. Yeah, she kept saying that, when we get to America, Didn't know how you're gonna get there, but that was her dream. So, yeah, so that was after the war till 45 to 49 is a little better. It was still, we were like nomads, drifting around, nothing permanent. But my dad, Mom, I think my brother Pete, some of them got jobs in Germany, so that was a little better. And, I remember 1948 was a pretty good year. I was 8 years old, and we went to live on this farm. I don't know how we got to this farm or why they took us in, but at that time there was 48, so there was 10 of us by then. I had 3 younger sisters born after me in 43, 45, and 47. And we lived on this farm, a German farm, and it was pretty good. The farm was kind of in the valley. There were mountains all around. And 3 of us again, Ziggy and Vera and Valerie, would go up in these mountains a lot picking berries. There was a lot of berries grown in Germany all over. That was good food eating, fresh berries, strawberries mainly. And also on that farm in that valley, there was a little town, village, I don't know the name of it, don't remember, but we were going to church one time. We were going to go to a church, and there was the field there. We figured we'll cut across the field. It's closer to get to that church, you know. And it had to be either early spring or late fall, because it was cold. And I was barefoot like always, you know, and my feet got really cold. We're walking through the field, and there were cows out there, and I would go around looking for these fresh cow patties. I would step in there, warm up my feet, and keep going. At the church, I just wipe them off in the grass a little bit, and I was fine. At least we made it to church. 1949, President Truman, he opened the borders for refugees to come in, you know. And I don't know how it worked, but they had an organization there in Germany and one in the United States, whatever outfit they had that connected to people. You couldn't come in unless you had a sponsor. I think that's what they should have today in this country, but that's another story. But you had to have a sponsor, and somehow, I don't know how we got on the list, and we had somebody sponsored our family, and we got on that ship in July, heading for America. Finally, the land of milk and honey. We finally get to go. My mom's dreams come true. We were on that ship 9 days. I had my birthday on it, July 27th. I was 9 years old, and we landed in Boston and got off the ship and in Boston, and there was the Red Cross was there. There was hot chocolate, donuts. Wow, I thought I was in heaven. I don't think we stayed in Boston long at all, because we had nowhere to stay or nothing, so. And they put us on the train to Mitchell, South Dakota. That's where our sponsor was from. They lived in Mitchell. And we got on that train, and that train was packed full of people. And I think we must have been on that train for at least a week, I would guess. From Boston to Mitchell. And all these people on there, they made a lot of stops, you know, to let them off, whatever. We got the Mitchell and Mr. Rosen. He was the guy that sponsored us, and he owned a grocery store. He had the Ford dealership, and he had a few farms around Mitchell. So he was pretty well to do. But yeah, he had a house by a lake outside of town, like a lake house, like some people have. They call them cabins. And we stayed in that house for a short time, and then he brought in there was a lot in town of Mitchell, and he hauled in this great big old farmhouse, 2-story, lot of bedrooms, big house, and we lived in there. And that was the summer, and then in the fall, September, school started, you know. None of us spoke English. We didn't know any English at all. I was 9 years old, and they put me in the first grade. You know, wow. But a kid, you know, they learn fast. Kids always learn fast. I was 9 years old. And the first semester, by break, December, whatever, I could read all the books. I could write. I could speak English. All the books about Dick and Jane and Spot. You guys remember that? Some of you? So the second semester, they put me in the 4th grade. Wow, phew, I didn't know anything, you know, I'm just a dummy. But they put me in the 4th grade. I went through the 4th grade, and that summer, we found out there was big, a lot of people, Lithuanians, at St. Anthony's Parish, you know. Father Yusevich had the parish St. Anthony's, and he sponsored a lot of people that came over back in the 50s. And they all went there, and Father Joe, he would put them up the first night, and he put us up in the basement of the church, like here, you know, under the church. There was a basement. We stayed there. You know, 2 or 3 other families. We just put some blankets around our space, you know, and lived there for a while. And then we bought a house right away, and moved in that house. And fall came, September. I had to go back to school, St. Anthony's Catholic School, and the nuns were teaching. Oh, I love them nuns. A lot of people mocked them, but I loved them. They were great. And they put me in the 5th grade. Now I knew I was in trouble. And I was, because I didn't know anything. But 5th grade went by. Summer came, 1951. I was 11 years old, and I said, well, I'm in this great country. I got to start making some money here, be rich, you know, land of milk and honey. 11 years old. I thought that, you know, and I found the gold mine. It was a dump in South Omaha. On 22nd Street. You guys remember there was a dump on 22nd Street, just south of Al, maybe 2 blocks long. Small dump, but it was a dump. So I would go there every Saturday morning. And back then, if you had any bottles, everything was bottled. There were no cans. So the like beer bottles or pop bottles, you take them to a store and they give you 2 cents a piece for them, you know. Yeah, that was a good deal. I go to that dump Saturday mornings, I find 12 bottles, I go in the bar, cash them in, I had 24 cents. A lot of money for an 11-year-old. So I went to the drugstore, Walgreens, it was on the corner, 24th Street. 3 candy bars for a dime. 3 candy bars. Go up the street, the Roseland Theater, 9 cents to get in. So that's 10 cents to 19 cents, you know, and watch 3 cowboy movies plus cartoons, and I still had a nickel left over. Oh, what a country. Amazing. Yeah, that dump was my money maker. I was there every week. Yeah, so, but then later I got a little older, did a lot of grass mowing, and snow shoveling was the best. Oh, I made a lot of money there. First thing is snow, I'd get up, I'd run, whoever hired me, I'd done or shoveled their sidewalk, drive, whatever it was, I don't care. Made a lot of money doing that. Yeah, a couple of years went by, and I graduated from grade school, 1954. Oh, that was good. I was happy to get out. I did love the nuns, this is true. All right, got out of grade school, high school starts. Oh my, whew. I didn't like school anyway, never did. I can admit it. The first 2 years, freshman, sophomore, was not good. But of course, you got to realize my parents didn't watch. There was 10 of us, you know. They're not going to watch every kid. You're on your own in a big family. Usually you are. You're close, but you're alone. Nobody watched. They say, what are you going to study? I ain't going to study nothing. I'm just going to go put my time in, which I did. I had to take English. It was mandatory the first year of freshman. History. I had 2 books, okay? But I never opened them. They stayed in the locker, and I never bothered. But high school, you know, there were 500 kids in my class. So, and that was the only high school in South Omaha at the time. You know, they're not going to flunk you because they need room for the next guys coming in. So my grades were 4. You know, just enough to pass. Keep moving, yeah. Then, sophomore year was better, or junior. The first 2 years were bad. Third year, junior, I turned 16. I said, wow, I had enough money, I'm gonna buy a car. I bought my first car, 1948 Ford. Paid $100 cash for it. Wow, that was a big deal for me, you know. That was junior, senior year, that was good. I had a car, I had a job in the morning before school for like an hour and a half or whatever. So that was great. I'd do my job, go to school, get out. I had a car, did whatever I wanted. That was good. And I graduated that too, so. 4 years wasted, my opinion. But I have a diploma. That's what counts. Not really, I never used it, didn't need it. I didn't plan on going to college, and because I didn't like school, period. You know, some people like school, some don't. I never did. I was a big dummy, but God blessed me with common sense. I do have to give him credit for that. I got along pretty good with common sense. So I got out of high school, I found a job, construction. I worked maybe a year. That was 59. I said, a friend of mine and me, my buddy, said, we got to join the service, you know, because back then they were drafting yet. So he said, let's go sign up, volunteer for the draft. That's only 2 years. All right, let's do that. That was a good deal. We signed up, went in the service, both of us together, and we stayed together the whole 2 years, which is unusual, because they always split people up. But anyway, took 4 months of basic training, and a guy came in from Well, Fort Campbell, Kentucky, pushing the airboat. He says, hey, anybody here want to enlist in the elite outfit, airborne? 101st Airborne Division. And he talked about a little bit. He said, plus you get paid extra, $55 a month. Extra. My pay then was $68 a month. So I figured 68, 50, that's almost double. Sign me up. You know, it was all about money anyway for me, so sign me up. So I signed up, was in the airborne for 18 months, and 2 years was over, and I started thinking before I got out, I said, I got to do something when I get home. What am I going to do? I can't go to college. It'll be another waste of 4 years, and I got to do something now. I got to make a lot of money, fast. How do you do that? Legally, so there was this guy on TV on the commercials quite often back then. It was almost every day. Subby Franco says, make a lot of money in a short time in cosmetology. I said, wow, what's that? I don't know what that is. Charging a couple, you know. I went to talk to him, and he said, yeah, we do this, whatever. And I said, make a lot of money in a fast time, short time. I said, sign me up. I signed up for cosmetology. It took me maybe, you had to have 1,800 hours back then to graduate to get a license. So I worked my construction job, and I went to school nights and weekends. And I got out in 1,800 hours. I think maybe a year, maybe less, somewhere there, whatever. So I got my license, and I was a hairbender. Finally, gonna make a lot of money. So I went to work downtown at Brandeis. They had a beauty shop there back then, and I worked there for maybe a year or less, get a little experience. And I had a little shop on Q Street. I worked alone. And in 1965, everything was moving west in Omaha. So a brand new shopping center opened in Bel Air Plaza. And I said, we got to move out there. That's a lot of money out west. So I moved out there in 65, opened a shop, had 6 chairs, 6 girls working for me. I was still single and making money, and it was good. In 67, I met Kathy in the LaSalle Club, and we dated for a couple of years and got married in 1970. We had 4 kids in 3.5 years. And 1972, we built our first house in South Omaha. I bought a lot and built the house, and it cost me $37,000. Brand new brick house, ranch, beautiful, 3-bedroom, big lot. It was a really good house in those days, you know. We paid cash for it. We started out good. With 2 kids at that time, 1972, 2 kids, house paid for. I had 2 brand new cars when I was single, paid for. And Kathy had a car. And we were doing pretty good, more than most normal people are when they get married. You know, they struggling, they have mortgages, this and that, whatever. Anyway, it was good. Fast forward, where am I? At the house. Okay. That was the time that I had this notion in the back of my mind that I want to own a bar. Okay. Where'd you get that idea? I want a bar. I always wanted a bar for some reason, and it was in the back of my mind for quite a while. And every time our house in South Toma, I drove by Harrison Street on 50th and Harrison, there was this big empty lot sitting there, and I said, "Boy, this is it, the gold mine. You know, if you put a bar there." So every time I drove by, it come to my mind. Good 2 years anyway. Finally, I start acting on it. I said, "I'm going to build that bar. I don't care. I went and bought that lot first, worked on the plans, and in the meantime, sold the beauty shop, built the bar, and opened for business in 1976. Brand new bar, building, everything new, all paid for. Not really, we had a payment on that building. But it was good and bad. A lot of good things, a lot of bad things. Bars, probably most of you know something about a bar. I liked it myself, Kathy hated it, but we made a good living, I think. Kids went to all Catholic grade school and high school, which I always wanted, and it worked out good. And it was in, I didn't go along with this at all, I don't know what I'm looking at. No, we belonged to Peter and Paul's parish all our life, you know, and at that time, back then, they printed out a sheet, you know, of people, parishioners, and how much you donated during the year. Yeah, guess whose name was on top of the list? 2 bar owners, Sabaliauskas and Latosa from South Toma. 2 bar owners, the highest donors in the whole parish, you know. So business wasn't that bad. Anyway. In about the mid-'80s, I realized that, you know, owning that bar had a lot of negative things. I was drinking too much. I always drank all my life, but not like this. It got a little bit out of hand. I was drinking way too much. I knew that. And in 1990, our youngest daughter, Jeanette, was in a car accident. And she was in ICU for 10 days in a coma. And she was 16 at the time. That was in 1990. And the pastor at St. Peter and Paul, Father Don Shane, you probably know him, most of you. He was a parish priest, and the hospital called us at 1 a.m. in the morning, said, "You better get over here." And she's slipping away. So, and Father Don was there with us, and we prayed the rosary, and early that morning she died. And we went home, and I got in the house. There was something really bothering me, you know, like I was going to cry or do something, you know, and I didn't want Kathy to see me crying. You know, men don't cry back in those days. When I was a baby, I remember that. Anyway, I went down the basement, and I didn't cry, I wept. You know, if anybody ever wept, it's a lot different than crying. It comes from the very soul of your body. You weep. And I went upstairs, and I was a little better. And after that, in 91, I finally figured, I says, you know, I'm just getting out of hand with his drinking. I wanted to stop, but I couldn't. Even if you want to stop, you can't do it. You can't do it. I feel sorry for these people in AA and whatever, that, they struggle. It's hard. I know it's hard. But I went to church one day, and it wasn't a mass. I just went. I wanted to talk to God. I told him I want to quit. I can't do it. You have to help me. And he did. Just like that. God helped me. I quit drinking completely. Lost all desire to drink. That's the important thing. Never touched a drop for 25 years. And in '93, we were in church at St. Peter and Paul's. That was an ethnic parish also, if you don't know. Croatian parish. A lot of Croatians were there back in the 50s, especially like St. Anthony's. All Lithuanian, they were all Croatian then. Anyway, we're at Mass one day, and they announced that there's some refugees coming to Omaha, and asked if anybody would want to sponsor a family or whatever, and we looked at each other and said, yeah, we got to do this. Right away, I knew, and Kathy did too, and she said, especially Jeanette would want that. She would do that. She loved to help people. So I said, yeah, we'll do that. We got in contact with them. The Croatian Cultural Society in South Omaha. And they said, if you take a family, we'll help you. Okay? I said, we really don't need no help, but whatever you want to do. We went Christmas Eve, 24th, in '93. Went to Epley Airfield, picked them up. We didn't know who they were, like our family didn't know, was a mother, 38-year-old, and 3 kids. Ramo was 8 years old. Let's see, I was 13, and Mirala 15. 4 of them. They had this little bag carried, 4 of them. Just like when we left. We never had anything, never took anything. So that was Christmas Eve. Next day is Christmas. The day after that, we went shopping, of course. We had to get clothes and stuff for this family. They were, and they didn't know a word of English either, like we did. We did sign language, till they finally learned a few words to get along. And their dad was in Germany working because at that time the Bosnian War was going on. And I don't want to pick on anybody, but the Serbs, they were the ones that started the war back in then. And they would go through the whole country of Yugoslavia. When they broke up, they had 7 countries there, but they went through the whole country and getting people with their guns. You want to fight for us, or you want to die right here and now? So a lot of those men left. They took off. They went somewhere else to work and help support the family. And so it took us 4 months through legal channels, and we got him over here also. And they, family of 5, they lived in our basement in South Omaha. And it was a big house. We had, the whole basement was finished, and they had plenty of room. They lived with us for 18 months. Kathy had to go to work because we had to finish paying for college, high school, Catholic high schools a little bit, and the main thing was buying food and clothes for this family, you know. They never had nothing, well, I gotta say this because it bothered me a lot. Those Croatians, you know, when this family came in, they didn't know either who's coming. They found out this family is Muslim. Not Croatian, but they were Muslim from Bosnia. And they said, we want nothing to do with them. And that's what hurt me more than anything else. You know, that's why I said, they're coming with me, we're going to my house. How can people turn away somebody in need? So, anyway, 93 also, we started going to Arizona for the summers. Some winters. In 94, we bought a house there, and we kept going. And we'd leave in the winter. Our son John, he would take care of my apartments. We had 3 apartment buildings also at that time. I didn't bring that in. We took care of that stuff, watched our house. Of course, some Bosnians, they lived in our house when we were gone, and they took care of it. But and we started going to Arizona. And I got to jump forward too. I run out of time. 2008, our parish, St. Mary Magdalene in Arizona. Wonderful parish, beautiful parish. A lot of stuff going on like we have here, you know. Classes, studying, all kinds of good stuff. And we met this couple, Bev and Gary Appleberry. They had a Magnificat Tours company that they did pilgrimages through all the holy sites, you know, around Europe. And we met them and talked a little bit, and says, you know, we got a trip going to Medjugorje in March. This was like January, you know. And wow, Kathy's eyes lit up. She said, Medjugorje, I want to go. And our neighbor lady, Jan, she wanted to go. So I told Kathy, why don't you and Jan go and I'll stay home? You know? You won't be alone. Because I really didn't want to go. I was still a pagan at that time, remember? I was Catholic, but I was still a pagan. Catholic, not what a Catholic should be. I keep saying that. There's a lot of Catholics that shouldn't be Catholic. Anyway, Kathy says, yeah, if I'm going, you're going. So I said, well, we're going. So we signed up. In March, we went. It's a long trip traveling. That's terrible. Anyway, we got there, and the day of the apparition, you know, so tomorrow we're going to have apparition. Mary's going to appear to Mariana. We were staying at Mariana's house. There was a group, maybe 17, I think, our first trip there. It was a small group, 17 who were at her house. And since we stayed at her house, we could go with her and be real close during the apparition, you know. And being the pagan I was, I said, wow, what they call Mary, make an appointment or what? She's going to appear tomorrow at 10 o'clock. That was strange to me, you know, at that time. But I didn't know how they worked that, so, but I did find out. We went to this place, there must have been 5,000 people there, at Chinakalo. And we prayed one rosary, then we started the second rosary, and about halfway through, I gotta tell you how they know when Mary's coming. The visionary, they see this bright flashing light right before Mary comes. That's how they know she's coming. So we're praying the rosary and Mariana lights up her eyes just, and she falls to her knees and she has that look on her face, you can tell. She's conversing with Mary, having a talk. And the whole place is like you can hear a pin drop. It's so quiet with all these people there. And after the vision is over, Mickey, the guide, he's a translator, and Mariana tells him in Croatian, because they talk in Croatian, their native language, to Mary. And Mariana tells Mickey in Croatian, and he translates it into English, and then they post the message for Mary. So that was that day. Then a couple of days later, Mickey says, tomorrow we're going to go Apparition Hill, which is a site on top of this hill where Mary first appeared the first day in 1981, the vigil of St. John, the 24th of June. Says, you guys got to go to confession tonight, and tomorrow we'll get up, have breakfast, go to Mass, and then we'll go Apparition Hill. So, okay, we do all that. On the way up, Mickey leads us, and we pray the rosary, the joyful mysteries. Joyful mysteries. We walk up to the first mystery, and there's a plaque there, and Mickey explains a little bit about it, who did it, what it is, the Annunciation. He talks about that, and we pray the 10 Hail Marys a decade, and then we walk up to the next one, because a lot of people pray while they're walking and you run out of breath. It's a very hard, rocky, real terrible journey going up. And so we walked to the next one and prayed and got to the top, finished the rosary, and Mickey says, now you're on your own. There's a statue of Mary. There was this great big, about 10-foot tall statue of Mary on the hill, and you can go over there and do whatever and go back down the other side or come back down this way you were. So we all dispersed, went our own way, and we walked. I went over to in front of the statue and I'm praying, just standing more or less, and I saw Mickey coming up, and he knelt over right across from me to the left a little bit. He knelt down and he was praying like this, so reverently. This Mickey's he's a saint, a walking saint, if you knew him. And I looked at him, and I felt something go through me. And I started to cry, and I stood there, and this feeling came over me, total peace and joy that you can't explain, It's a bit of heaven. And I stood there, I didn't know what happened, I knew something happened, but I didn't know what it was. It just didn't make sense to me, period. And I stood there for the longest time, trying to soak it in. What is going to happen here, or what's next? I had no idea. Stood there for the longest time. Finally, I turned and I walked down. And I never told Kathy when I got back what happened. I didn't know what to say, And time went on, and it must have been a couple of months or so later, just before we got home in early spring, we were going to come home, and our friend Frank and Pat, they said, let's go out to dinner tonight, it's your last night. So we did, went to a restaurant, and that right then, something come over me. I said, I got to tell this story. I told Frank and Pat, Kathy, I think that's the first time she heard, about this conversion. I found out later it's a conversion is what happened to me, And what is a conversion? A total change of heart. That's why it was so hard for me to accept or explain at the beginning, at first. So I told Frank, and he said, "Oh, John, you got to tell this story more often to more people, But we come home, and it started to sink in more and more, and I started doing all this studying, being a pagan Catholic before, and I started reading books. I read, I don't know how many, 200 books at least, religious books, mainly. And started going to classes, all these classes that anybody had anywhere I went to. I wanted to learn. I had this desire, this zeal to learn more about my faith. That's hard to explain, and this is that change of heart where you got to learn this stuff. You have to. You can't ignore it. It just pushes you so hard. Those a lot of things I learned mainly was from at the men's conferences we had in Arizona. They had one every year, and they had the best speakers in the country. They were there every year. Oh, it was amazing. And I met most of them. Scott Hahn, Ralph Martin, got a flyer back there on him. Ralph Martin, Peter Herbeck, Father Larry Richards, Father Karapi, all of these guys. Just the list goes on and on. They just nothing but helped me to learn about my faith. Okay. Yeah, I went through the Crucio. You guys heard of Crucio, I'm sure, a lot of you. I did that. I did Alpha 3 times in Arizona. And just a whole bunch of studying, learning, trying to figure out what am I supposed to do as a Catholic, I think one year, 2012, Father Larry Richard was in Omaha at St. Wenceslas, and I went to see him, of course, and he handed out those little cards of prayer to the Holy Spirit that I still have today, and I started it back then in 2012. Every morning, prayed this prayer to the Holy Spirit. And Father Larry said, you go to adoration, do a holy hour every day. It's going to change your life. And I truly believe it, because that's what happened. Yeah. Well, I got to back up a little. I got to tell you guys about something else that happened in Medjugorje. Some of you people were there. Joanne, Carol Manginelli, Joanne Good. We went on the Medjugorje. I think it was our 3rd trip. And there was a Father Dave from New York, upstate New York. He was in our group. And he was a healing priest. And we had, he said, we're going to go have a healing mass. So we did, went to this chapel, and Father Dave had the mass first, and then after mass he exposed the Blessed Sacrament, and he was going to pray over people, whoever wanted. They all went up one at a time, And our, I gotta tell you, this group in Arizona, our friends, our prayer groups, they're all into the resting in the Spirit. You guys know what that is? Or some of you, people pray over you and you fall down, more or less, you resting in the Spirit, you know. And I was a little leery of that, even after my conversion. But anyway, these people all went up our group, and they rested in the Spirit, and there's somebody behind them always catch them and lay them down. And Gary, in charge of the group, you know, our leader, him and Bev, his wife, they were catching the people, and then it was Gary's turn because he's the last one, and I said, boy, he's gonna fall. I know he rests all the time, and nobody there to help him. So I went up to help. I was in the pew, you know, and I went to help when he went down, and then nobody else there but me. And, you know, I'm a little leery, but I said, well, I'm here, I gotta do it. So Father Dave says, John, what do you want to pray for? And I was standing like this, you know, and I says, I want to pray my son John comes back to the church. And I had my eyes closed, and I'm praying, and he's praying, and his voice kept getting softer and softer, and I didn't hear anything, you know. Deathly quiet. Didn't hear anything, didn't see anything, I had my eyes closed. And after that, they tell me, I was there 35 minutes, standing like this. The priest went back to the altar in front of the Blessed Sacrament, prayed out loud, they said. He said, Jesus, please bring John back to us. Nothing happened. He went back 2 times, and I'm standing there, rigid. You know, you could move or do something, nothing. I'm standing there like this, rigid. Father Dave was panicking. You know what happened? He told me all this afterward. He says, call Kathy up. She was in the pew. Kathy come walking up. And Gary, there was a chair on the side, tile floor on the altar there. He pulled that chair and he made a screeching noise, like whatever. And I woke up, just like that. And Father Dave says, oh, he finally decided to come back to us. So I didn't know I was gone. I had no idea what happened or what it was. I'll leave it up to you to figure it out. I still don't know. I just think I rested in the Spirit is what happened, standing up. So you don't have to lay down a lot of times.
And we missed lunch.
And we missed lunch, and they all blame me. We were half an hour late for the lunch. Yes. Okay, where am I? Whew. All right. The good part. Back in 2017, Dave Persian said, John, I'm getting a knee replaced. You know, we got to know each other pretty good back then, prayer group and all that. He says, you know, I got to get my knee done. I need somebody to replace me at jail. Dave and Rita do jail ministry, 30 years already. And I said, I didn't even hesitate. I said, yeah, I'll fill in, sure, no problem. So the first time I went with them to see what's what, how to get in jail and all that, you know, I had to get cleared and everything, but yeah, it was fine. And I went alone for a few times, and I liked it. It was good. I went back to Arizona that fall, And I signed up right away there, and I had to get cleared. It took a while, but I did jail ministry there. And then it was early spring. I was in adoration, like always, you know, and just sitting and praying and thinking. Got this strange feeling saying, you know, Jesus was talking to me. You have to go back to Omaha. I said, wow, what? Oh, that thought came to my mind, but I didn't want to accept it, you know. I said, this Arizona, this is my paradise. You had a house, it was paid for, no problems, you know. Go in the winter for 7 months, come here for 5, back and forth, perfect. I said, I'm never selling that house in Arizona, no. But this thing was so strong in my heart. You got to get back to Omaha. So I told Kathy, she didn't believe me. You're going to sell this house? I said, oh, we have to. If I'm not coming back here anymore. So he said, well, we're going to have to buy a house in Omaha then, because we didn't have one here back then. We sold our last one, we lived with our daughter and son-in-law for about 3 years. So I said, well, fine. Yeah, we came home to Omaha in the spring. Went to see Charleston. We picked out the house they were building. I said, I want it close to church because I spent most of my time close to church. I don't want to drive too far. I'm here more than I am at home. So we built in this neighborhood, Charleston. We told what we wanted and we left because we were going back. We left early in August to Arizona to get the house ready, put on the market, sell it, which it did, real good. Got everything we wanted and packed up the big truck and came home in November, end of November. And first thing I called Deacon Al Allner. He's in charge of ministry, jail ministry. I said, Al, I'm back in Omaha. You gotta find something for me, because Dave and Rita were back doing what they're doing. I said, you got anything open for me to do? He said, not right now, but I'll have somebody call you in about, as soon as he can. So I'm waiting, and this guy calls, Pastor Bob, a pastor from some church, his own church he started. Anyway, different story. He called, we met, and he said, why do you want to do this? I says, well, I guess I got to tell you, I had a conversion, and I want to do jail ministry. And I had a conversion in Medjugorje, is what I told him. I said, did you hear of Medjugorje? He said, no. I said, you're not Catholic, are you? No. Anyway, he says, well, we're doing an alpha program at the Tecumseh State Prison, and we need volunteers to go in. I said, hey, sign me up. That's what I'm here for, okay? So I don't know, it didn't take long at all, a couple of weeks maybe. Went to Tecumseh. This was 2018, I think. And about the second time, going to Tecumseh, the second week, I walked in, and it was in the library where they had these classes for Alpha, you know. I walked in there, and these guys all shake your hand, can I help you? You know, this warm feeling, you know. Jim knows, he does it with me now. They're so, I don't know, what kind of word can you use? They're so grateful for you being there, thankful, you know. And guy comes over and wants me to hug, wants a hug from me. I said, yeah, sure, I'll hug him. And this picture, again, flashed my head. These people, 75 years ago, begging for for food. 75 years later, these people that are locked up, begging for spiritual food. Same picture, you know? What a revelation for me, what God had in store. It started that long ago, and it all filled in. All the puzzle pieces fell right into place. Here I am, totally. All I can say is, here I am, Lord, send me. Thank you.